Welcome to the latest health news that you will not see on the mainstream media. So what do we have now? We still have the coronavirus out there. So please, if you can, check out my videos on the coronavirus. It's very important. I feel like a lot of people need to hear it. This could actually potentially save lives if people do take steps into their own lives, just taking little action steps at a time. You know, that is better than doing nothing at all, and taking some action steps, being prepared, does not hurt at all. So please check that out. I think it has a lot of very informative information on there. I know that my camera's working even better, and I thank everybody for staying tuned. I know there's some people that actually stay tuned to these one after another. I really appreciate that. You know, we have over 8,000 views, I'd say, over across like 3 different platforms, from YouTube, Brighteon, and BitChute. So I really appreciate the support so far as we get through this. I'm not doing much advertising for these videos, so it's really up to you to get these out to the public. And you know, it's cool because I could always look back on it. I could say, well, later down the road, you know, these videos can be universal. These videos can be something that I can look back on and say, well, it still applies to today, because what we have is a virus. But yeah, there's still going to be more viruses coming our way, for sure. There always will be in some form. You know, you get a cure for this, get a cure for that. Well, another virus comes out of nowhere. Another problem comes out of nowhere. But why is that? It's because humans don't learn from the past. And so understanding that this history could actually tell us for our future, that can be very important. It says alarming coronavirus update, cremation soaring, 50,000 new infections estimated daily in Hubei province. Okay, so this is something that even the World Health Organization was not able to talk about it for a while, and then they finally recognized it. You see many cities going into quarantine, like Beijing and all over China, and now starting to escape to China and going into Vietnam. So just be aware that it is starting to spread, and most likely will peak around the US in August or June, around the summertime. At least where I am, you know, in northeastern USA. So also, there's China reports a 33% surge in coronavirus infections over 24 hours. So that's how fast this thing is spreading, okay? You're having case after case, you know, thousands and tens of thousands over just a period of time, right? And you have numbers being skewed. You have more evidence coming out. You have ex-CIA people, ex-bioweapon experts. You have people that signed into laws. You had people part of the Chinese Communist state that can't expose their identity, but they're all coming out and saying, well, what is going on here? It seems like it's some sort of scheme that was either planned to some degree, or they let escape, and there's just a lot of bad practice going on with some people knowing the hindsight, some people knowing behind the sight of many people who are like us, the public, the general public, who are not seeing this information, right, as the occult usually would be, where the information is hidden for power to be maintained. So let's get into the news for today. Sepsis may be responsible for 20% of deaths worldwide, and this is sepsis is a life-threatening condition triggered by a systematic infection that causes your body to overreact and launch an excessive and highly damaging immune response. So I talked about sepsis in previous videos. Actually, you can see I did one on sepsis and its correlation actually with vitamin C in a good way, not in a bad way. Vitamin C was actually shown to help maybe potentially treat sepsis, and we'll get into actually a protocol that you may be able to use for yourself, and you would probably not believe, but sepsis is very similar to the flu-like symptoms. So while you may think that you have the flu, you might actually have the sepsis, and it is not talked about in the news that often, and definitely not talked about in the schools that often. And if it's responsible for 20% of deaths worldwide, and this is a common statistic now that we're seeing sepsis is becoming more commonly talked about in the alternative media, it's because the mainstream media is not talking about it. And so let's get it out there. It says, unless promptly diagnosed and treated, sepsis can rapidly progress to multiple organ failure and death. In the U.S., 1.7 million adults develop sepsis each year, and nearly 270,000 die as a result. And, you know, we're commonly seeing that this is a correlation also being in hospitals for so long, and having, you know, in hospitals, it's not always the best conditions. I mean, what are they giving them? They're giving them apple juice and popsicles. Like, that's sugar, right? And if I were in the hospital, I'd probably want to fast, right? Because then my body could probably heal itself. But then they say, oh, well, you can go on an all liquid diet. And you don't need salt and anything like that. You know, salt is bad, even though salt could actually be pretty good in many cases. But sugar, we know, is definitely a big problem. So why are we giving people in hospitals plenty of sugar? Does this make any sense? We know sugar is just as bad as a lot of these chemical additives out there, you know. But it's something that we can look at nutritionally and say, well, this is probably the worst thing we can look at nutritionally, right? It's not a chemical, but it's becoming one, especially with how much we process sugar, with how much we add it into things, not telling people and not realizing that it's there, because there's MSG and there's also sugar, and then there's also this and also that, preservatives and flavors and colors, and a concoction that you really just don't know what it is after a while. And many people are just unconscious because the food is unconscious. There's no love in the food. The people that consume it are also unconscious. There's no love in themselves, you know. Like, people who do love themselves, they start to understand, well, what am I consuming? What is it that I'm exposing myself to? Because that's going to help reflect upon who I am, right? And that's a really important thing to note, right? But it says, according to the most comprehensive global analysis to date, sepsis is responsible for 1 in 5 deaths worldwide each year, double that of previous estimates. Despite its prevalence, sepsis is frequently overlooked, even by healthcare professionals. For this reason, it's important to familiarize yourself with its signs and symptoms and to take immediate action if you suspect sepsis. Yes, and this says sepsis has been identified as a major contributor in influenza deaths. Some symptoms of sepsis also resemble those of influenza, which is the flu. So it's important to know how to distinguish the two, and especially, you know, maybe another excuse for them to say, oh, get a flu shot because you're getting the flu, but it's not actually the flu, it's the sepsis. So keep in mind that this is something that's out there, and it's very, very common. So how common is it? Well, it says in the U.S., 1.7 million adults develop sepsis each year, 270,000 die as a result. Between 34.7% and 55.9% of American patients who died in hospitals between 2010 and 2012 had sepsis at the time of their death. Okay, so people who die in the hospitals, you know, who are exposed to these conditions, maybe lots of sugar, maybe nurses that don't care a whole bunch, you know, depending on what hospitals you go to. Some have really good care, others not so much, you know. Some people, they may administer drugs the wrong way. Some people may forget to turn on some oxygen machine or something. The simplest little things in the hospital can go a long way. I mean, I've experienced it myself, not being in the hospital, but family members being in the hospital and then being there with them. I'm like, what's going on here? What is this? You know, like, you'd probably do better at home, and no wonder why want to go home, right? But they can't go home because they're in such a bad condition. Well, are you making the condition better then? Are you there to actually give them loving support, as you know you're supposed to do, if you're supposed to tenderly love somebody and the right brain is to do that, right? But we're in a left brain dominant system where it's all about money, where it's all about greed, where it's all about give this to that, and it's not cool with me. It's just not cool. So I had to call it out. And it says the death rate of these in-hospital patients with sepsis is 10% compared to 1% among patients without sepsis. Okay, so that's like nearly 10 times, right? And if you look at, well, okay, let's say you work in a hospital, you know, you can make these steps actionably. You can do some little things, you know, they go a long way, especially in a situation where you're literally dealing with someone's life. And you can create some change somewhere within your establishment. We do see, later on you'll see in this article, certain hospitals use a certain protocol for sepsis, and they always have it ready, just in case, because, well, this is something that could also develop while you're in the hospital. Okay, so spending for sepsis rose by 19% from 2011 to 2013. It is now the most expensive condition treated in the U.S., costing $23.6 billion annually. And what's costing us all this money? Oh, well, guess what? It's the drugs, you know what I mean? It's the treatments that we use that often don't also address the cause, the root cause, which could also be a lot of deficiencies, a lot of immune system deficits and disorders. I mean, why are people so prone to viruses right now? It's because they're not boosting their immune system. And I do suggest, you know, if you are someone who tunes in who doesn't have an entirely healthy diet, and you know you don't, okay, that's okay, okay, it's not bad, you don't have to freak out. You could always contact a health coach or somebody, you know, a nutritionist, a dietitian, preferably a health coach who can look at the whole condition, and then maybe a naturopathic doctor or a functional medical doctor. They can also address the whole condition, and they work great well on your team. but those people will probably be the ones who can give you more alternative treatments that you're not going to see anywhere else. But you can also take steps within your daily life to become kind of your own doctor. For anyways, a naturopathic principle is doctor as teacher. You can actually teach yourself, given some of this information, and saying, well, maybe I could do something about it. Maybe I could actually put some superfoods in my diet. Maybe I could start adding a little bit at a time, and it'll naturally crowd out the bad stuff, right? The foods that heal you, right? You hear all about garlic doing this, garlic doing that, avocado doing this, avocado doing that. How about we try adding some of that in? Maybe you have certain favorite foods that are healthy, because you generally know what is bad and what is good for you. So maybe continue adding more of that food that you love and see how you feel after a while, right? Because your body craves it. Your body wants it for a reason, right? And so maybe your body says, oh, well, I want pasta. Well, why is it craving pasta then? If you know that's bad for you and you shouldn't be consuming it, then you probably should stay away from it. But how are you going to do that? Make it actionable, okay? And realize that it's there, and realize how your body's also being tricked. And then in addition, use the same logic into, well, about the good foods. Is the good foods going to be more present in my lifestyle? What makes me want to crave it, right? And after a while, I must say, I crave salads now. It's crazy. I never thought I would be saying that, but I do. And it's because, well, I start to love it. I made it so where I can enjoy it. You shouldn't have to eat food that you don't enjoy. That's always been my premises. I don't eat this way because I tell myself that it's the right way to eat. I eat this way because, well, it makes me feel good, because I don't have digestive issues, because I lost a ton of weight. I actually did. And there's different things like that contributed to how I am. And it's not like I got hurt to get into this mess like many people have. It's more of like a natural transformation, and I want it to be a natural transformation for you before you do get hurt. Because a lot of this, looking at sepsis, looking at a lot of disease, this is not going to happen to people with generally stronger immune systems, or people who are more aware of their current condition. Same thing goes with the coronavirus. People who generally have a stronger immune system are going to be able to handle the virus, actually, because it's just another viral outbreak. Now, yeah, sure, maybe it could be a bioweapon, maybe, sure, it could be something even more extreme, but it could still be better. You still have much better chances if you're not with the whole crowd, the whole sheeple crowd that doesn't care about the health, okay, that puts no consideration at all into their health. So that's something I like to talk about often, is just self-sustainability. I'm not trying to sell you anything, okay? Obviously, I have affiliates that you can take a look at. They can probably teach you some stuff themselves, right? Some of these websites too, they're great, okay? But I'm not trying to sell you anything, and that's the difference, is you don't need to spend a whole lot of money to eat healthy, number one. And number two, okay, you can eat clean, okay? You can eat clean food, real food that is healthy. It doesn't have to be all specific, okay? But if it comes from nature, as the channel intends, nature is the answer, then it's going to be healthy, then it's going to be good for you. It's just that simple, okay? So it is the most expensive condition to treat, sepsis, and it's important to note that they estimate that about 11 million people worldwide died with sepsis in 2017 alone. Out of 56 million total deaths. So that's about 20% of all deaths. An estimated 85% of these sepsis-related deaths occur in low to middle income countries. So I mentioned, it doesn't have to be all that expensive. It really doesn't, okay? And if you look at some of the treatments that I'm going to mention in a second, and also from my previous videos on sepsis, you'd understand that it really isn't all that expensive, especially to get such a high dosage of a vitamin, for example, that could literally save your life in this condition. And we're talking about vitamin C, of course. And it says that actually for low to middle income countries, this number has declined. So that's actually really good in this case. But still, it's important to pay attention that this is still something that is causing a lot of deaths. It's something that people don't know about, and if it's causing death and people don't know about it, well, clearly we must be talking about it. But it says that if it plays more than a role of 20% worldwide, we should probably see and know about the symptoms. There's a list here of all the symptoms. I'll zoom in on that for you. Okay, you'll notice a lot of things a lot like the flu, okay, but a lot of these things you also mention and see in hospitals, and they may say, oh, well, here's a drug for that, or here's this for that, right? Just constant, just like right there, oh, you have this, I'll give you that, right? But there's no thought into it. There's no process of elimination or thinking or anything like that that really gets us to that decision. It's just automatic. It's like, okay, that's what my authorities told me, so that's what I must do. And that's the same thing, when it comes to protesting what's happening at the hospital. If you're a staff there, that wants to fix something, it's like, Are you going to speak up about it, or are you too scared? And I get it, if it's hard to change things in your life, or it's hard to change things within your establishment, whoever you may be, or whoever you may be in this life, I mean, it's like, understand your position and that you can take steps here and there, slowly but surely, making sure that they do happen, just like we do with the body, to make sure it does happen, to make sure that your goals are reached actionably and slowly as meant to be most non-invasively. Okay, this is all for a reason here. Hydration is of utmost importance, actually, as much of the damage caused by sepsis begins with the loss of fluids. And how often are people dehydrated in hospitals, okay? And then they say, oh, well, all liquid diet. Again, if those liquids have sugar in it, do you think the sugar is going to help with the hydration? Okay, and then this person likely consumes coffee a heck ton, okay, probably before they even went into the hospital. They just drink coffee all the time because that's Americans' #1 source of antioxidants. And then probably when they get out of the hospital, they're going to continue, not drinking enough water, which is typically around like 2 liters for most people. I like to carry a water bottle like this with me all the time because it keeps me more aware that I have to drink water. I keep it with me all the time. It reminds me naturally, right? But making those actionable steps will actually go a long way. And if there's not water next to you and you're like, I need water, I need someone to get me water, like, this is not good, okay? This is not good. It should probably be easy access for everybody. And oh my gosh, they're going to send tubes through your body and it's just going to feed you water. Like, are you serious? Come on. That is not the medicine model that I want to see. It's just not of nature. That's the problem. So now they have a life-saving sepsis protocol that you should know. This is actually very common now in the alternative medicine movement, what we know we can do for sepsis. So if you or a loved one succumbs to sepsis, whether caused by influenza or some other infection, please remember that a protocol of IV vitamin C, so that's intravenous, but not vaccine, relax, it's just a little different, but with hydrocortisone and thiamine, which is vitamin B1, can be life-saving. So his retrospective before or after clinical studies showed that giving patients IV vitamin C with hydrocortisone and vitamin B1 for 2 days reduced mortality from 40% to 8.5%. And you look at hydrocortisone, you look at things like, what do you call it? You see all these old time remedies, okay, that are more pharmaceutical, but they've been shown to actually work, okay? I'm not promoting hydrocortisone, of course, but a lot of this stuff does come from plants. The problem is the FDA will push drugs out there that they don't actually know where it comes from most of the time, and they'll pass it. Same thing with additives, it goes under the GRAS category, generally recognized as safe, but it's not actually proved, okay? And then the beauty care industry is a whole nother situation because they don't regulate most of their products, and we see that with the vaping and everything else too, right? They don't regulate much. But you look at like hydrocortisone, and you look at penicillin, which is the other one I was trying to think of. This stuff has been around for a while, perhaps, and we can then see that it's actually been proven. It hasn't had to be recalled like every single month, like every other drug in the FDA approves, okay, and it puts on TV. You see all these drug advertisements. Most of those just get recalled in the next month, okay, because they don't last to show their efficacy. And these companies that promote these drugs and the agencies that promote these drugs are often one and the same, connected with each other, and there's a lot of lobbying interests combined, and to get on TV and all this other stuff, right? You have to keep that in mind, okay? This system is designed to feed itself, and it is a business. So the precise protocol used was 200 milligrams of thiamine every 12 hours, 1,500 milligrams of ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, every 6 hours, and 50 milligrams of hydrocortisone every 6 hours. Importantly, the treatment has no side effects and is inexpensive, readily available, and simple to administer, so you really have nothing to lose by trying it. Exactly. Okay, vitamin C has been something I've been talking about for a while, and I typically talk about high doses because we see how powerful it is, not just for sepsis, but also for cancer, right? Also for maybe superbugs and other things, maybe viral pathogens, I don't know, maybe coronavirus. But seriously, vitamin C is really, really important. I'd say it's probably up there with vitamin D. It's really, really good. And it is an antioxidant, and it does, come from oranges and apples, and lemons actually provide full spectrum vitamin C, so that's really important. but you're going to get the most out of a supplement, actually. So I would suggest doing that, and making sure that actually if you combine it with bioflavonoids and rose hips, for example, it can increase the bioavailability, which means that you absorb it better. Okay, it means that it's more effective. And when you're sick, you can take around like 5,000 per day, combined with perhaps like 75 zinc. Okay, so that's something you can do if you're sick. So vitamin C is really good in the cases of these extreme, more immune condition oriented problems that we see in society. So a lot of usage for vitamin C that is highly underused, and it is a really inexpensive supplement that you can get. I mean, you can even see like yearly supplies costing maybe $10, and if you look at that, that's like, I mean, like less than like a cent a day. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Okay, and so this is importantly, the treatment has no side effects and all that. So that's just important to note that, it's natural medicine. It can't be patented, so they can't make money off of it. Of course, the hospital's not going to give it to you, but it might actually work, and that's what we're seeing here. So even Centera Norfolk General Hospital, where Mark works, who designed this protocol, has made the protocol its standard for care for sepsis. Okay, and other hospitals started to follow, but unfortunately, most of society did not follow, and they didn't even give it a try, because that's just typically how it goes, right? Do people even give it a try? Do people even care? But do people even care to change their diet? I don't think so. But it says it also reduced the number of days they needed to remain hospitalized. So there's multiple uses for this. But I guess if they stay in the hospital longer, that's also more business. So I don't know, it depends how you look at it. But maybe the hospitals don't care a whole lot because, again, they too are also in bed with the drug companies and the CDC. And they just take orders, because that's what everybody likes to do, is just take orders and not think for themselves and not take that self-sustainability. So remember, sepsis is often a result of secondary infection contracted while in the hospital. So it's prudent to be prepared. Always be prepared. That's the whole reason behind getting the right supplies if in case the coronavirus comes to you, which is projected to kill about a lot more thousands in the US actually. And you see that our disease rates are high in the US, so if anybody's going to be more prone to this virus, it is literally going to be us, especially since 5 million people left Wuhan, China before this whole thing happened, conveniently after the Spring Festival. Everything seems so lined up there. But regardless, if your doctor refuses to consider this treatment for sepsis, convince him or her to review the studies cited here. Look at all these studies here. These are footnotes, so you can go to this article and see all the studies here. But there's so many studies, like I said, on cancer, on sickness, and all of this for just vitamin C, whether it's IV or not, or maybe in different forms, getting all the different forms. We see amazing results with that, and this is just one vitamin of nature of plants that often have thousands of components. So thank you very much for watching. I think it's important to note that if we can just slash 20% of deaths through vitamin C, and then maybe cut sodium nitrate out of the food supply, which is responsible for a lot of cancer, and then maybe get adequate vitamin D, which is responsible for a lot of disease. I talked about like 50% of disease potentially in one of my videos. We can really knock down the amount of death and disease in our society by a large margin, looking at these studies time and time again coming out, right? And we can compile a lot of information over time now with everything that's out there. More just coming out by the day, as independent labs are putting out this work because a lot of the big companies are not willing to do it. But just amazing stuff we see even in these smaller trials with a lot of individuals. And so I figured to share that with you. I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching. Thank you.